sing it with me. Come on, y'all. You know this movie. Come on. Pretty woman walking down the street. Pretty woman. Come on, sing it. Oh, be pretty woman. Thank you, Marlo. Come on. Kids, stand to your feet. Act like you like me. Just act crazy just for a few minutes, will you? Let's clap your hands. Smile. Come on. Do something. Go ahead, put your hands on your head. You strut it where you are too. Come on. Let's go, pretty woman. Yeah, come on, put your shoulders back. Put your head back, act like you're somebody today. Come on. Thank you, guys. Go ahead and give yourself praise because you stood up. Give yourself a nice round of a praise offering or something. Yeah, come on. Pretty woman. Walking down. I got to say, I don't feel pretty today because it was Thanksgiving. And let's just say, I don't feel pretty today because I had some mashed taters. And I had some mac and cheese and all that good stuff. And I knew Sunday was coming. I said, I ain't got a red dress, but my God, thank God I got a black one. Because I could suck everything in, come on, and just act like, you know, I didn't do bad, but really I did. But yeah, Pretty Woman. How many of you remember the movie Pretty Woman as we continue our At the Movie sermon series? Pretty Woman, if you have not seen it, or you're wondering why this pastor is bringing up that kind of movie today, I'm going somewhere with it, I promise. Oh boy, I might get some critics on this, but that's okay. But just to let you know a little bit about what the movie is about. Julia Roberts played the part of Vivian. Vivian was an escort, y'all. Come on, I know we're in church, but let's just be real. And then there was this gentleman who played Edward, and his name was Richard Gere. Remember, come on, good old, good-looking Richard Gere, come on. And he's a little older, but it's okay, he still look good. And so that's kind of the main characters in the movie. And Vivian is doing her thing on the street, and Edward is coming on the scene. He's a businessman. He had come into town, and he was looking for some little love and some companionship. How about that? And so he was going to these social events, and he needed someone to go with him, so he hired her for the week to be all those kinds of things. And as the movie goes on, you will see that Vivian begins to change. Vivian went from this person who was on the streets looking like a nobody, come on, to then getting around him. Well, that's what happens when you get around the right man. Come on, somebody. And so then before you know it, they start falling in love, and she begins to change. And I started thinking about the movie and what she looked like when she was on the street compared to what she looked like towards the end of the movie. She went from the boots, come on, and the, things, to then wearing a nice red dress, right? And looking all fine and sophisticated because something began to change on the inside of her and the outside of her. And so then I started thinking about the passage today that I felt like kind of went with this movie. And it's John chapter 8, if you have your Bibles, John chapter 8. Verse 2 through 11, I'd like to read it. If you could say, I'll read it with you, Pastor Dana, that would be great. You're not reading it with me, okay? Thank you, Nicole. And at dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. And the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman. That woman didn't even have a name because all they knew her by was her issue. Come on. And that'll preach. And they brought in a woman caught in adultery, and they made her stand before the group. And they said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now, what do you say?" And they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, and I like to back up right there because another version said he stood up, and that's going to preach in a minute. And it says, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Go ahead. And he stooped down and he wrote on the ground. At this, Those who heard began to go away one at a time. Say one at a time. And the oldest ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. And Jesus straightened up and he asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." I want to talk to you today about this right here. Are you ready? Are you excited today? It's called Labeled and Unstoppable. Because I believe that so many of us have been labeled by the issue. Many people forget our names. All they know us is by our mistake, by our life, by what we did, where we came from, what kind of neighborhood we grew up in, what our parents were like, what kind of job we had. Come on. That's how people have labeled us, and many people have spoken things over us. But I just want you to know today that all that really matters is what God speaks over us. And I believe today that no matter what your life has been filled with, no matter what people told you you could or couldn't do, the bottom line is with Jesus, you're unstoppable. With Jesus, you're unstoppable. And so when I look at this story, man, my heart is moved because I think about this woman and I want to get into it because, I want to break it down because it's fun like that. Look at your neighbor, say, it's fun like that. We're in church, but it can be fun. And I started thinking about this woman was in the act of adultery. And these bad boys took her and drug her through, come on, I'm picturing in my mind, she been dragging down the street, like they got a hold of her, they're pulling her all through the street, through the neighborhood, everywhere they could, and then they put her in the temple, and they just didn't put her in a back room and said, "Wait here a minute, we'll be with you shortly." They didn't do that. They pulled her up front, and the Bible said that she stood there. Now, I just want you to go back and think a minute, okay? First of all, to all the people who are watching you be drugged all down the street, all the people that are about to know what you did, it's going to come out, right? Everything that was about to happen was all being brought forth, right? She's in the temple court. She's standing there, and everybody had an opinion about her. Don't you love people that just got an opinion about everything? Yeah, come on. Y'all know somebody. Ain't that person, but it's the other person that always got an opinion. And we got to be careful when we start listening to the opinions of others, because the opinions that they had on her for that moment, it seemed good to them, but they did not know where she had been, what she had been through, or what her story was about. And sometimes people can cast judgment before they know where people been, come on, what they've gone through and what they're all about. And that's what was happening to her, standing before Jesus. The Pharisees, these religious teachers, talking about everything she's done. And here she is standing before them, and they're speaking, this is what got me, they're speaking all this over her. See, I believe that some of us are not, how should I say this, are kind of messed up today because people have placed labels and you have allowed them to speak over you things that they should not be speaking over you. You've had people speak over you, talk about what you've done. How could you do this? What are you thinking? Come on. And you'll never amount to anything. I don't know if you've ever had anybody tell you that, or teachers come on, or preachers, or people in your family. But the bottom line is people have placed labels over you, or maybe you place labels on your own self. Maybe you're the one who's holding yourself back. I don't know, but I know that it's real. And I know that people can put labels on you based off of all kinds of conditions that has happened in your life, and you're trying to deal with it, and you're allowing people to speak over you, and they're not speaking life, they're speaking death. And they're speaking dead things. And I just want you to be careful what you listen to, and be careful with the people who are doing that over you, because you got to be careful that they kept talking about her. Can you imagine standing in a room full of people and Jesus and somebody, man, it's bad enough to know you messed up, let alone have someone tell everything. Come on, some of you tell all that on Facebook. That'll preach another day and another time. They're telling it all. They're coming with charge after charge after charge after charge. And these people are talking about stoning her and putting her down and all kinds of stuff. But how many of you know that no matter what you've been through in your life, you can sit here today and say, you know, I might have messed up, right? But I'm still standing here today. Hey, I might have messed up. I'm not perfect, but I'm not where I used to be. Because I don't know about you, but I'm glad I'm not where I used to be. I'm getting better little by little, but I'm glad I'm not where I used to be. And how many of you know that you can say that too today and understand and know that, you know, if it had not been by the grace of God, I probably would be in prison today. Come on, somebody. I probably would have been hooked up on drugs and all kinds of stuff. And some of you may be struggling with addiction, but you know it's better than what it used to be. But you know where God brought you from. And even though these people had drugged her and brought her into that place and told everything about her, see, some of you are looking at people who have drugged you around and talked about you, but come on, if it had not been from them dragging you out of that situation and drawing you to Jesus or drawing you to some source of help, you don't know where you would be today. It's the situations around us. Her life is a mess, just like many of you might look at your life and say it's a mess. Everything was happening to her, but you know what? She says, I'm not where I used to be. That's not who you are today. I want you to know it's not who you are, and you're not what you did. So what did she do? How did she handle it? Well, she handled it better than I would have. If I was caught in the act, you know, I'd feel pretty bad, let alone to be drug out and everybody in the world know what I had done and then pull me in front of all these people and have me stand there forever while they rip me up and down. You know, it was probably not fun. But this is the first thing I want you to know today. If this happens to you, or if you want to know, how can I be unstoppable? How can I be unstoppable when people have placed labels on me based on all the things that have happened in my life? Number one, you got to master your emotions. Man, she was good at it, okay? Because I got to admit, y'all, if I was drug off to there, man, I'd be like trying to get people off of me. I'd be mad, okay? And let me tell you something. I don't get mad very often, but when I get mad, you better watch out. You know what I'm saying? And I can't imagine being pulled in there, being embarrassed and humiliated. I could just say that I don't know if I could just stand there. But not only did she just stand there, but she didn't cry and snot all over the place. Come on. She didn't try that, ladies. You know what you do when them cops pull you over. She didn't do any of that. She didn't put her paws on them, right? She didn't try to attack them. She didn't try to fight them. She just stood there, as embarrassing as it was, intimidating as it was. I mean, I don't even know that I could have stayed in the temple. I probably would have tried to escape somehow, some way, and go crawl underneath the chair and probably hide and be so embarrassed. But she stood there, and she stood there as they cast stones at her, as they talked about everything about her. I'm sure she felt about this big. I started thinking about back to the movie again with Vivian and how Edward gave him his credit card. That's a smart man right there, you know what I'm saying? What he don't know won't hurt him till the bill comes around next month. Yeah. But anyway, so he gives her the card and he says, you know, you need to go get some clothes. We're going to this event. You just go shop and go get what you need. And she goes in this, you know, she thought she was something. She came from nothing. So she goes in these really nice stores and she wants to get these really nice clothes, only to walk in so excited that she finally was at that part of her life, to find the women rolling their eyes at her and, you know, walking by her. No one even acknowledged her. No one said, how can I help you today? They just walked right past her. You know, I started thinking that's exactly how it felt for this woman caught in the act of adultery. There she was, and people were calling her all kinds of things, but she didn't leave. She stood right there. And the Bible says that as she's standing there, and as they're just reaming her and talking about every charges up against her, that Jesus stooped down and he began to write on the ground. And so picture yourself, Jesus is down on the ground, he's writing, and they're just going on. And guess what else she did? Oh, yes. We want to tell you exactly what happened and all the things that she's done. Not only was she caught in adultery this time, but let us just tell you a little bit about her reputation. Let us tell you a little bit, Jesus, about everything, because we're going to get her. Like, she's bad news. And so they're going on, and he's just down there. And then the Bible said that he stood up. See, he was standing up to defend her. And I believe that Jesus wants to stand up in some of your lives right now. I believe that Jesus wants to stand up for your house, like what's going on in your home. I believe that Jesus wants to stand up right now, what's going on in your mind, in your body. Come on. I believe that he wants to stand up because he wants to defend you. He's so sick and tired of what they're saying about her. He's like, you've gone on long enough, so he simply just stands up. I don't know who y'all want defending you, but it really makes me happy when I think about if I was that woman and all this was going on, that there was a man named Jesus who cared enough that said, oh, hold up, let me just stand up for a minute. Let me just speak for a minute. Let me just get something clear for a minute. Aren't you glad that you have Jesus who can defend you when other people walk out on you? Come on, y'all. You're supposed to get excited. We're out of the movie for an hour. We're talking real life. Aren't you glad that there's a man named Jesus who loves you, that wants to defend you, that wants to say, you know what, people are pointing fingers at you, but yet he stands up for you? So no matter how weak you feel today, I want you to know this. Number 2, defended in your weakness. That's exactly what he wants to do for you. He wants to defend you in your weakness. That thing that you feel defeated about, he wants to defend you. That thing that people have labeled you about, he wants to stand up. It's like that song, Please Stand Up. Please stand up. I think, I'm going to sing a song somewhere, but that's all I could think about is he standing up. He wants to defend her. He's like, enough is enough. He's like, y'all going to eat the words you said about her. Come on. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You want to stand up. You want to stand up to some people and eat and tell them you can eat the words you said about me. Right? And that's what he does in this moment. He stands up, right? And I'm going to tell you what, when people like to bring up your mess, don't they? They want to bring up your mess, and Jesus is like, hey, go ahead, bring up her mess, because I'm going to stand up and say, I already paid for that. I want to stand up and say, my blood already covers that. All your mess ups are covered by the blood of Jesus. Aren't you glad that he's defending you? Aren't you glad he's the best defender you could ever have? And sometimes you don't even need to say anything at all. He just defends you, man. You're thinking of all these things you can do. You're thinking, oh, I'll just post this. I'll do this. He's saying you don't have to post a thing. You don't have to say nothing. You ain't got to open your mouth. He says, I just want to defend you. I want to defend your future. I'm going to defend your past. When are we going to realize that Jesus sees you bigger than what you did? And he wants to stand up and defend you. Oh, come on. I was grateful for that. Think about all the people in your life that you want to defend you, but you look and they ain't nobody around. They ain't nobody saying nothing. But yet Jesus is the greatest defender. And we think we got to figure it out and say the right words and do the right thing. And he's like, no, when are you going to learn that all I need to do is stand up? All I need is to stand up and defend you. And that's what he does in this moment, in her weakness. In her weakness, when everyone was saying everything they had to say, Jesus defended her. This is the last thing I want you to know. You're like, man, she's moving good today. I ain't done yet. Number 3, God silences your critics. Because she has some haters. And she has some accusers. And I don't know who's accusing you of what in your life. But I just want to let you know today that God can silence your critics. And I believe that the first time he stooped down to write on that ground, I believe when they were talking all this talk about her, he maybe wrote justice. Justice says, according to the law of Moses, she should be stoned, right? That's what they were saying to him, and he was writing it as they were talking. Then he erases it. Then he listens to them go on and on and on and on. And he tells this to her accusers. In verse 7, it says, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Pretty much he's telling them, you better keep your mouth shut about all the charges against her. I'm sick and tired. Come on, all you moms. Sometimes you just got to get up off the couch, you know. You're like, you better stop. Blah, 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 blah. And they just keep going. You're like, it's something about just standing up. It's like, don't make me get up out of this couch. Come on. Don't you make me stop this car. Y'all don't pull over on the side of the road. Hey, my kids are growing. I still do that mess. Pull over the side of the road. Man, you better, come on, somebody. Yeah. And so the Lord has a way of doing this. He says, you're going to eat your words. When was the last time that you checked on your own life and all the things that you've done? Because he's like, I already know what you did. I know who you were with, what you did, and how you did it. I already know everything. He says, so why are you over here pointing fingers trying to accuse her? He said, go ahead. I know what you got. I know you're trying behind your back. There's a stone you're trying to throw at her. And he tells them straight up. And the Bible says that after this, they start leaving one at a time. See, God has a way of dealing with your accusers. He has a way of clearing things up in a way that you can't even imagine. See, you're getting caught up in the accusers and the critics in your life, and he's saying, why don't you just let me take care of it? And so they started going one at a time, at a time, and a time at a time. I just want to let you know, God says you just need to let them go. Say, God says you just need to let them go. It might take time for them to go, but he says stay in position, let them go. Don't text them and ask them what's going on. Just, hey, behind their back, they got a hidden stone. You just let them walk away. So let them walk away. I need you don't need to go after your haters. You just need to let them go. Allow them to go. Don't go looking for them. Just pull out your phone and block them as they walk away. Come on, delete them as soon as they leave. God says, I will silence your critic. The Bible said that they began to leave one by one. But then, the only one that was still standing there with her was Jesus. He was the one. See, so many times we get so lonely and think that people don't care about us and people have left us or whatever the case may be. We get caught up on people being there. And God's like, when are you going to realize that I'm there? That all you really need a lot of times in the moment of storms and tribulations is me. You don't need so-and-so and so-and-so. Yeah, it's good to have friends, but all she was left with was Jesus standing there. And I believe that when Jesus stooped back down in that dirt and he began to write, he wrote the word grace. He wrote the word grace. I'm glad that I serve a God that don't keep track of what I've done, how many times I've messed up, how many times I've fallen, because I'm going to tell you what, he'd have a lot to write about me. But I'm glad that I have a God that looks at people and does not judge them based off of what they've been through, right? He doesn't do any of that. He just says, come to me and let me love you. Come to me. I am here for you. And he has not left her side. Thank you, Miss Marianne. I've been waiting for you. And in that moment when I believe he wrote grace, he was writing it for all the people that maybe have left, but there was still maybe somebody sitting up somewhere that's witnessing what was going on that they did not see. He said, let me just write this on here for just to make sure that people in the back, understand that I'm a God full of compassion, that I'm a God full of mercy. Let me just make sure that you understand how I'm going to deal with you. Are you grateful that you serve a God that loves you, a God full of grace, and when we mess up and we finally come back to him, that he doesn't shake his finger in our face and say, where you been? I thought you weren't going to do this time. But instead, he's there to love us. And he told her, he said, go, sin no more. But before he said that, I believe he put his arm around her and said, but let's talk for a minute. You might want to do a little better on some of these decisions that you're about to make. But I believe when he wrote that word grace, it was like he was ripping pages out of her life. He was saying, here's a fresh start. I believe somebody's here today people have been putting labels on you your whole life. And I believe that today God's saying, you've got to get rid of the labels. Because what I have for you, and I want you to know that you are not alone, that I am here for you, that I have not deserted you. You may feel alone, but I am still here. I am the only one left, but I am still here. Are you glad that when people leave you can still depend on God? I am. I'm grateful that he's here for me. I'm grateful that he loves me no matter what. When I don't feel loved by others, he's always there loving me. Are you grateful? You better be. Will you stand to your feet? You better be glad. It's 11:26 that the musicians come forward. I just want to encourage you today to come forward if you feel comfortable. I would love for you to, but I believe that there's somebody here that that needs to get the labels off, right? You've been condemned long enough by the issues. You've been labeled enough by the people who've been in your life, the people who have left your life. And in order to be unstoppable, we got to let the labels go. And when I think about that woman standing there in the temple and all that she went through and how Jesus was the only one who stood up for her. Jesus is the only one today that wants to stand up for you. He's like, I know you messed up. I know your life hasn't been great. I know you've been through some pain. I know you've been through some heartaches. I know you've made mistakes. I know there are things that you blame yourself for. I know all that. And he says, but I want you to know that I'm with you. And I want to pick you up. And I want to make you unstoppable. Will you bow your heads this morning and just... If you're like, Pastor Dana, I needed this today because sometimes the enemy tells me that, because of the decisions I've made or because of the things that happened to me, I'll never be someone. And anybody with no one looking around just say, Pastor Dana, that's me. Can you just pray for me? Yep, I see hands up today. I just want to encourage you, if you feel brave enough and you want to give the enemy a black eye, I just ask that you would just come forward. I mean, if you don't mind coffee breath, I'm right here for you. I just encourage you to come up today. I have people that just want to put their arms around you, people that just want to love you today. And if you're here and you simply just need someone to be there and help walk you through something, will you come up today as the musicians get ready to play? If you guys could come up.